Welcome to Grammar Lesson 1. Your sophomore grammar lessons are a collaboration of all of the sophomore English teachers, and they collectively chose Grammar Girl to speak for you. So Grammar Girl presents Lesson 1, the complete sentence. Now, as you remember from last year, the complete sentence is a group of words that has a subject and a verb and expresses a complete thought. The sentence makes sense because it is one idea, not just part of one. A sentence fragment, and you recognize fragment because you had both frag and fragment as vocabulary last year. The group of words is a sentence fragment when part of the idea is missing from the sentence. The sentence does not express a complete thought. It could be missing a subject, it could be missing a verb, or it could have an incomplete verb. Now what we're going to do different this year is we're going to look at different ways that a sentence can be a fragment. And the first one is that it is a phrase fragment. Remember, a phrase is a group of words that does not contain a subject and a verb. Because it doesn't have all the parts of a sentence by itself, the phrase is considered a fragment. And there are three types of phrases often mistaken for sentences: the verbal phrase, the appositive phrase, and the prepositional phrase. So let's look at the verbal phrase. Now remember, a verbal, it could be a participle, it could be a gerund, it could be an infinitive. A verbal is a word that is formed from a verb but used as another part of speech. Because they are developed from verbs, folks often make the mistake of thinking that they are verbs. Some verbals end in ing, d, and ed, or they have the word to in front of it, like to look or to run. None of these express a complete thought. Let's look at some examples. The first one is found in the hot and cold climates. It's not a sentence. It's actually a participial phrase. So let's combine it with an independent clause so that it makes sense. Found in the hot and cold climates, deserts are created when the Earth's surface receives little to no rain. So now notice that our participial phrase, functioning as an adjective modifying deserts, is now combined with the independent clause, deserts are created when the Earth's surface receives no rain. Now the subject is deserts and the verbs are created. Our second example, learning about the Gobi Desert. Okay, it's not complete. It's actually a gerund phrase. So it has no subject, no verb, and let's see what's done with this one. Learning about the Gobi Desert made me interested in studying deserts. So now when it's made into a complete sentence, learning about the Gobi Desert functions as a noun because it becomes a subject for this sentence. And our last example, to find information about deserts, is an infinitive phrase. There's no subject, no verb. So let's look at it as a sentence. We went to the library to find information about deserts. So combining it with your subject we and your verb went, then it becomes a complete sentence. So watch for your verbal phrases, verbal phrase fragments. Okay, appositive phrases and fragments. Just to review, an appositive is a noun or a pronoun that identifies or describes a nearby word in your sentence. So an appositive phrase consists of the appositive and all of its modifiers, and because it does not express a complete thought, it cannot stand alone in a sentence. So, do you recognize that? Anybody? Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Okay, our fragment is a strange rock formation. No subject, no verb. It needs to be to be linked up with a subject and verb to form a complete thought. So let's look at our sentence. Devil's Tower, that's its name. Devil's Tower, a strange rock formation, has sage, moss, and grass on its flat top. So it's now next to Devil's Tower, and it's functioning as a noun or a pronoun that's identifying Devil's Tower. It's in a positive phrase. Then we have our prepositional phrase and fragments. A prepositional phrase is a group of words that contains a preposition and a noun or pronoun called the object of the preposition and any modifiers of the object. So, here we have another picture of Devil's Tower. Our fragment is of volcanic rock. Doesn't stand by itself, not a complete thought. When it's combined with the subject and verb, it makes a complete thought. So Devil's Tower is an 865-foot tall tower of volcanic rock. Then we have subordinating clause fragments. Remember, a clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb. There are two types. First, there's the independent clause fragments that can stand alone as a sentence and they are a complete thought. Then we have a second type that is a subordinating clause because it does not express a complete thought and it cannot stand alone in a sentence. And usually it's made subordinating by subordinating conjunction. A subordinating clause fragment is easy to identify because it suggests a question that it does not answer. Example, when the flock of scarlet ibis came to roost in the mangrove trees in the Caroni swamp, well, then what happened? So we can tell that it is a fragment because it doesn't express a complete thought. And you have this right here, subordinating conjunction that you know that you need to finish that sentence. So let's look at this. When the flock of scarlet ibis came to roost in the mangrove trees of the Caroni swamp, the trees seemed to blossom into bright red. Okay, so you have the question answered. After this happens, then the trees blossom. And if you remember, that's from the Scarlet Ibis, one that we read as freshmen. Subordinating clause fragments. So we've had phrase fragments of verbals, appositives, and preposition, and subordinating clause fragments. Next, we're going to look at the run-on. Remember, a run-on sentence is two or more sentences written incorrectly as one. The sentence is confusing because there's no idea where one sentence ends and the next one starts. There are three ways that a run-on is formed. We have a fused sentence, a comma splice, and a conjunction used without a comma. So let's look at the fused sentence. A fused sentence is simply two sentences or two thoughts combined together with no punctuation. Let's look at our example. A motorcycle turned into the alley. It skidded on the gravel. Okay, we have our first thought, a motorcycle turned into the alley. We have the second thought, it skidded on the gravel. But there's no punctuation between them. This is called a fused sentence. So there's a couple ways you can fix that fused sentence. The first is to make it two completely different sentences. Notice this, a motorcycle turned into the alley, period. It capitalized, skidded on the gravel, period. So two complete sentences. Or you can combine them using a comma and a coordinating conjunction. The motorcycle turned into the alley, comma, and it skidded on the gravel, period. So those are two ways you can fix a fused sentence. Then we have the comma splice. A comma splice is two complete sentences joined only by a comma. So let's look at our example again. A motorcycle turned into the alley, comma, it skidded on the gravel. So it is called a comma splice because you have two complete thoughts, but they have only that comma between them. This mistake can be fixed by making the comma a period and capitalizing the next sentence. It could be fixed by making it the comma a semicolon, or it could be fixed by adding a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Then you have a coordinating conjunction that's missing a comma. You have two sentences that are joined together, and you only have that coordinating conjunction. The motorcycle turned into the alley and it skidded on the gravel, period. So that's wrong. It's considered a run-on still. And the way you fix that, of course, is you add that comma before the coordinating conjunction. Very simple. But you just need to add the comma, else it's wrong. So, one thing I want to caution you with before you get going with this lesson is that if you see a mistake and you know that the sentence is a run-on, it's a fused sentence, and it's the same example here, a motorcycle turned into the alley, it skidded on the gravel. You know that's wrong, but to fix it you add only the comma, then you've turned it into a comma splice, and it's still wrong. So you must remember that you have three ways you can fix it. You could make it two separate sentences. You could put a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or you could do your semicolon if the two sentences are closely related. Okay, now we finished our first lesson. Make sure you have these notes done. You are now going to complete the Canvas activity and submit it. Then once you submit, you're going to go in and check your answers, learn from your mistakes. You will bring that grade in on Monday along with your notes, and I'll give you your points for those. And then on Monday in class, we're going to do another activity with this together as a class and correct it. And that will be your grammar grade for the week. So I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.